Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. So we're back for another coffee break chat, and this time we're here with IBTM Wired speaker Anna Abdelnoor. So thank you for joining me, Anna. It's lovely to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good to be here.
So we're going to be talking today about Anna's session that she's going to be delivering on day 4 of IBTM Wired, called the Sustainability Game Changer for Events. So sustainability is obviously a huge discussion topic in the industry at the moment, and we're just going to be chatting to her to get a few hints and tips into what she's going to be talking about on the day. So why don't we start off just with I suppose an intro question. What makes sustainability such a game changer for events? What is it about sustainability that is so important for professionals?
So I think sustainability has really taken a forefront in people's minds as a result of the pandemic. So while the pandemic has had awful repercussions in so many ways, and I'm not going to go over those now, they're very well documented and we've all experienced them, but there's also been loads of positives that have come out of the pandemic, and people, day to day reporting those as being able to slow down, reassessing what's important to them, spending more time outside, spending more time with family and friends, and that is sustainability. That is really about how we live our lives in such a way that we don't burn out and that we're able to appreciate everything that we have around us. Things like blue skies that we saw over China and dolphins in Venice Canal, and that feels like a million years ago now, but actually that was exciting for people. It was the first real, I guess it's not tactile, but I suppose tangible realization that people had that actually things haven't always been the way they are, and it doesn't completely work. And wow, I want to see dolphins in the canal. I don't want to go. I've been to Venice and the water's kind of gross. So, it really came to the forefront, I think, for a lot of people. And then as a result of that, sustainability had been but it had been such a big topic prior to the pandemic anyway, but now it forms one of the core narratives about building back better, building back greener. We had G7 recently, which was probably which was a massive letdown when it comes to climate, and who knows what really we're going to be looking at COP26 later this year. But the point is it's on the table, it's on the agenda, and it's become part of the public discourse. So events have really shown their fragility in many ways from the live perspective over the last 18 months, but at the same time they've shown an agility, adaptability, the way that businesses and individuals and brands and the whole industry has really adapted the way that we work to bring hybrid and virtual experiences or integrated experiences to the forefront. That demonstrates sustainability as well, and the impacts of that. I mean, I could go on for ages, and I kind of hear that I'm talking to myself, but the impacts of that have their own sort of repercussions on how we can adapt the way that we as an industry work and function. We've demonstrated overnight that we can change the way that we do things to benefit us all. So actually we can do the same thing with sustainability. And now is the time. We have this incredible opportunity to go forward or go back to live, but doing that in a forward motion. It's not about the future of the events industry, the future is right now, and so we should be using this time, and that's really what ILA, the organization that was launched that I run, that launched in September 2020, is about, and that's where kind of we've developed a whole bunch of resources and supports for the industry, and that's kind of what is really exciting, because we're going to be talking about that in detail at the session, because we've got a really cool project or cool resource launching for event planners, anybody in the event sector actually. So won't give too much away, because that's what we'll talk about at the session. But really, really exciting to have something for the industry to take and run with, essentially.
Absolutely, and like you were saying, the fact that I suppose the effects of adapting our sustainability, adapting our behaviours, have been made tangible over the last year. So it's something that sorry, I think my connection just fluctuated there, but we'll keep going. But yeah, I think the fact that you mentioned that it was a tangible thing, so many people are seeing now that it's something that we can do, that we can support. So I know that it's obviously changed a lot after the pandemic, and I know that the future is obviously, as you said, now, and it's what we do now that's the the important thing, but what would you like to see in the future for sustainability? If you had like a dream wish list of what you'd like to see, what sort of things would you go for?
You mean like planetarily, or are you just in the event sector?
Just generally, if you know, a bit of both, I guess.
Oh God, wow. Okay, so this is like somebody giving me a soapbox and a wooden spoon to bang against the saucepan. Probably a terrible question to ask me, because I'll just go off on one. No,
Go for it.
What would I like to see? I think the reality is that the way things work at the moment, the system is broken. You know, it really is. We can see that through things like toilet roll being cleared from supermarket shelves from that kind of panic stations, but also that kind of recognition that actually we can clear our supermarket shelves if people panic too much. And actually that really represents things like broken supply chains. We've seen the way that you know, last year in June, well, I don't really know what quite the word is, but the rising of like the Black Lives Matter movement that really kind of struck a chord globally. It just has really demonstrated how the system that we live in doesn't work. You know, and that touches so many different things, and you know, the intersectionality of kind of justice movements, environmental justice, social justice, economic justice, they're all inextricably linked together. This is why you said you shouldn't get me on my soapbox. But I think for me, what I really want to see for the future of sustainability is an adaptation in the way our societies work. You know, I am a big supporter of equality and justice for everybody. I think you've got to be a bit of a kind of an interesting person to get up and say you're not those sorts of things. But I really do think that we have a responsibility to adapt the way we live and make changes and concede that change needs to be made, and change isn't always bad. It doesn't necessarily always mean less. And I think that's one of the things that people you know, that we can fear when it comes to making adaptations. So I guess for me, what I'm trying to say is that I'd really love to see huge shifts in cultural norms and social norms and behavioral norms towards, you know, restorative, regenerative practices that put people at the center of the human experience, not, you know, the money that we're making or how busy we are or how successful we are based on the size of our company or the size of our car or the size of our house, those sorts of things. So I suppose for me, that's the future I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's the dream. I mean, only small things, of course. Very easy.
Yeah.
Easy to get
I mean,
to.
I'd also really like a puppy. You know, those sorts of things. I've got small dreams as well, but yeah.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think there does need to be change that happens. But I suppose if you're an event planner, let's say, and you're thinking, yes, I need to be more sustainable, I need to help with that transition, that change, but obviously that's a big change to start doing straight away. What sort of small steps would you kind of suggest people start thinking about in order to help that change start moving?
I think an absolutely the easiest and a free thing that we can do is to be talking about it, and to be not just talking about it in kind of, you know, conversation that we should be more sustainable, but really pushing that question amongst our teams, amongst our supply chain, and pushing it upwards towards our clients as well. You know, depending on where you sit, maybe it's clients or stakeholders. If you're in-house, it's really about looking at what your ESG or your CSR, or what is our responsibilities, what are we committed to, and how can we translate that into our events programs and say, actually, we don't want to do it how we've always done it. We know that we need to do things differently. How can we start doing that, and having those open conversations? Because you know, things don't change unless we talk about them. You don't know that there's a problem unless you know, you don't know what you don't know, those sorts of things. So I think the first place is, you know, we do need to move from talking to action, but, you know, we need to make sure that everybody's talking about it. Yeah. So the first thing is having the conversation. And the second thing is just starting. You know, we need to do so much to kind of get ourselves out of the mess that we globally are in, particularly with regards to halving our emissions in the next 8 years, by 2030, sooner if possible. So wherever you can reduce your emissions, reducing it through travel, or reducing it by being more energy efficient, or reducing it through designing menus differently, do that. But at the same time, just start small if you don't know where else to do that. You know, just it should have been done 5-10 years ago, but even if it is just a case of removing the plastic water bottles from your show, like, we need to get bigger than that. But if you haven't started yet, just start somewhere. Start with what you can control.
No, absolutely. And I think it's interesting how the pandemic, like you were saying at the beginning, how the pandemic sort of almost helped that, because now we're able to make the decision for ourselves whether we travel to a show. When live shows are obviously returning and getting back, you can make that decision, because a lot of shows will be hybrid. You can choose not to travel and not, use an aeroplane and not cause those emissions. And I think it's an interesting situation to be in, because there is just a little bit more choice. In the past you would have thought, no, I have to go, I have to fly there because that's what I've always done and that's how the show works. But it's nice that there is a little bit more choice now.
Yeah, and I think it's not about not being able to go places and not being able to do things. It's just doing it differently. 50 years ago it wasn't a cultural or social behavioral norm to jump on a plane. That was still reserved for, well, I mean, it still is today, but it was tended to be for wealthier people, and it tended to be to go on holiday or visit your family overseas or those sorts of things. It wasn't normal to just jump on a plane for business needs. And actually we took trains, we rode bikes, we walked which is what's different. But I think there's a real that should be seen as exciting. I could take an overnight trip to get to Barcelona, and I could do it over 2 or 3 days. I can work on the train if I want to. I can stop overnight somewhere in France and enjoy being in a different place. Not only is that taking a train and saving on emissions, but I'm visiting new places, I'm getting an experience, I'm supporting a local economy by going to a restaurant, and staying in a small hotel, and then continuing my journey to Barcelona. Great. Actually, let's make that a trip. The idea of getting on the train to go to Gatwick, to stand in a queue, to go through a security system, to all these sorts of things, a bit like, well, actually that's an entire day wasted anyway, so why don't I just sit on a train and enjoy myself? And you can still use that time. And I think that's exciting. That's a way of doing things. And actually you can make that part of an attendee experience for event planners that are kind of saying, how do we reduce our footprint for our emissions from our audience travel, but at the same time, how do we get people into our spaces? We do want people to return to these live events. Well, actually make it part of the event. Create network hubs for people traveling the same region together, organize like meetings on the train, start a reception. There's so many great ideas, and actually experience is formed through memories are formed through sensory experiences. I've heard it said before, and I've said it myself, you could be anywhere in the world once you get people into an auditorium and turn out the lights. So actually, right. So how do we create experiences beyond just content and information delivery, in a space, to creating connection and meaning? Because the reason we want live events is to be connected to people, is to network and to share all of that. So
and those shared experiences build not only memories but also connections. You're going to remember being on a train through France to get to the event with people that you've met there that are also going. You're going to remember that. It's why I suppose when people go traveling the world, they make friends with other backpackers or other people, because they share that, they connect with each other.
And that's really what events are about, that human experience, human interaction, because they're also business. They're also for promoting business and growing businesses, and they've got ROIs, all those sorts of things. But we can look at how our ROI can be just beyond the revenue or specific sales or so on. We can measure ROI on like customer loyalty and happiness and experience, and just have an additional set of metrics that enable us to consider things differently. And that is going to help push the direction that we want to go in towards changing our global societies.
And I suppose the benefit with that is that by making it an experience, by making it part of the event, you're making sustainability and sustainable choices that are less like, oh gosh, we've got to be sustainable, we've got to do this thing. Instead, this is just part of it, this is just how it happens.
I think there's a lot of the conversation when we a lot of the narrative around sustainability is that it's expensive, and minds tend to go to alternative materials for building our sets and our stands. And yes, we need to do that as well. But there's actually loads of different things that we can do beyond that don't necessarily cost. And a lot of that is to do with communications. A lot of that's to do with how we engage with people, how we talk to people. And it can be as simple as, not giving out agendas, putting it onto your phone. We're now entirely au fait with hybrid or virtual experiences. To kind of revert back to printing things out for people would be absolutely ridiculous. So, and then you've got the legacy beyond the event of a piece of paper that someone's probably going to throw away, or a booklet that someone's going to throw away and never look at again, to, I can refer to that whenever I want to on my phone. And actually, yes, that's not necessarily a free solution, but it's not different from anything that we're doing at the moment. And it might be diverting finances from printing into digital solutions, and so it's about thinking in such a way that we just adapt our practices to be more reflective of the time that we're in, which is, technological. We have all these amazing resources at our disposal, right through from, not having to actually go on a site visit because we can see the space virtually and we can map it all out, through to actually hosting an entirely virtual event, if that's right for the audience and if that's right for the kind of content delivery and messaging that we want to put through. And you still get an event, you still get an experience. And so I don't think we should be scared of doing it differently. That was forced upon us and we've done it admirably. So, what else can we do? The events industry is, literally it solves all problems all the time. I was speaking to somebody today who went from the events industry, and she's running a test centre at the NHS. It's literally like, you can turn your hand to anything if you come from the events industry. And we have this amazing opportunity to be the industry that can support and facilitate and drive change, as a communications industry, and as an industry of proactive doers. So I think, this is exciting. I think we should see it as an exciting opportunity.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. Well, thank you so much for joining me for our coffee break chat. And I've found it so interesting talking to you about all of these initiatives. I think it's so exciting. And if everyone would like to hear more from Anna about sustainability and all the great opportunities that there are to be part of that change, she'll be speaking, like I said, on day 4 of IBTM Wired. So make sure you register and head on over and you can catch her session on day 4.
And I won't be on a soapbox, so I'll just be a regular old session. Great.
Oh, well, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. It's been lovely having you.